Welcome to Read Science, where my co-host Jeff and I interview and just chat with authors of popular science book and engage in other types of science writing and try to understand how they make these topics that are oftentimes complicated, compelling and engaging and understandable to the general public.
So this was, science is a team sport. I'm not the discoverer of Tiktaalik, newsflash, okay? I am one of several people. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all the people who I work with. And so I wanted to tell their story too, because I'm embedded in a team, and Cappy was very much a part of that team. That team extends to visualization. So so much of what has come out with Tiktaalik was because of the talents of so many people, from the initial field work to the discovery itself, then to the just making casts like this, or more importantly, making casts like this, which Cappy does.
Describing something very big in a very compact way, and that's really the essence of good journalism, is that you want narrative, you want a confined story, but you want that story to stand for something very big.
We're close, but my two big aspirational models for my book were Rebecca Skloot's book for the sheer excitement of reading while learning about the science around Henrietta Lacks, and also Siddhartha Mukherjee wrote a fantastic book called The Emperor of All Maladies, a biography of cancer. That was very much an inspiration for Neurotribes.
Wow. So Jeff.
The one common feature of getting people interested in science, and then some of them who have the gift or the interest to pursue this, is the enthusiasm of the teacher.
There's some who are just not curious. There's some who are curious but intimidated. There's some who are curious but too busy. I think there's a lot of different reasons of why people hold back. Okay, and I understand. We're in a media-saturated and information-saturated society. There are a lot of things competing for your attention. I think there are a lot of people who are aware of science, but they don't. But it's not something that matters that much to them. They're not hostile to it, but it's just not really. It's not a part of their lives. And again, I think.
The fantastic thing is that kids are brilliant because kids have no fear, and they ask very basic, very fundamental questions. But then adults seem to get a bit worried that they're going to be stupid. So again, through being a journalist and through being a science writer, I've gained confidence that if I've got a question, it's worth it's worth someone answering it.
Temple was absolutely great to work with. 11 a.m. my time, 9 a.m. her time, Sunday morning, the phone would ring and she'd be ready to go. It was great.
Oh, and one of the things I did with you is I'd ask for homework.
That's right. That's right.
Specific things like we're working on a certain part of the book, and because I like kind of well-defined projects, I said, okay, now I'm going to go search journal articles and get my thoughts together on a particular area for this phone call.
In some sense, I'm sort of a gateway drug to science. And hopefully not leading people astray. Like, they look how fascinating science is, and then they decide to major it. But I think that once the further that you go with science, you become fascinated on that deeper level, on that molecular level, and that fascination will stay with you, hopefully.
To convey that, because these viruses, many of them are very, very dangerous, and the subject is important. So it's dramatic, and I wanted to make it dramatic so that people would pay attention to this. But I did not want to make it melodramatic. I did not want to exaggerate. You don't need to exaggerate these things in order for them to be, arrestingly scary. I stayed very close to accurate and precise scientific information as it was presented in the journal literature. When I write a book, I I travel a lot. I talk to a lot of scientists. I try and spend time in the field with field scientists. But I also read huge piles of journal articles. I read a lot of journal articles. And so that's where some of the information, a lot of the information, comes from, the hard facts. And
if children's enthusiasm is reinforced with direct experience, and also with the ability to try and package up and communicate their own experience, so they find their own voice through that experience of the natural world. I think even if the wonder kind of departs when the hormones start to rise, at some point down the line they'll get it back.
Marketing and PR professionals, David and I deal in these quote-unquote new concepts that are talked about in universities today in business and marketing classes. But as we looked at this and we studied it, and what comes out in some of the untold stories in the book that folks can read about is this idea that NASA did a lot of this pioneering brand journalism that set the groundwork for where we are today with technology.
We had these briefing books that were, 14 telephone books. Nobody has a telephone book anymore, but that's what they were. And they were just immense. And I would drag them home and study when I got back to New York. And I was sitting in the living room one night in New York going through one of the briefing books. And I heard the phone ring in the other room, and I heard my husband pick it up. And here's what I heard. Hello? Oh, hi. Great, fine. We're fine. No. Lynn can't go out to dinner until she learns how to land the space shuttle.
Research scientists, you don't tell stories. You write pretty much according to a template. In a typical scientific paper, you introduce your problem, you have a background section where you review what's been done, then you say what you did in the laboratory or the field or the theory, and then you talk about your conclusions and maybe your speculations. Writing about these events in a book form directed to a completely different audience was really a challenge. And I think the...
So I mean, one thing that drew me to science journalism was that most of the time scientists, they really do want to talk to you. They really do want to speak to you about their work. They want to give you the time of day, and more than just the time of day. And so a lot of times when I was talking to these researchers while I was researching the book and doing articles in support of that, I just found that they were so open and sharing with their time. I started to get to know them more as people instead of just as these lofty ivory tower figureheads. And I wanted to kind of capture that and bring that to readers. Not only just because that was what I experienced. I want to write what I know, but also because I feel like in these sorts of questions, these questions about what are we, where do we come from, where are we going, the questions that astrobiology and the search for extraterrestrial life deals with, it's something that everyone can connect with. So
I think you just have to keep your eyes open, keep reading, keep looking around you. Try to remember what it was like when you were a kid. I think having kids really helps you see the world like a child again. But yeah, just try to remember what it was like to be 9 and look around.
Would argue with me, but I think to make wildlife and nature interesting to very little children, you have to be anthropomorphic in a way, because you have to give them something to relate to. If you don't, kids are going to get bored and they're going to switch off. They're just not going to be interested.
You can't have an opinion about whether we should have a space station or not if you've never heard of it or if you don't know that we have one. And you definitely can't make an informed decision about it if you don't understand what's going on up there. And it's not just a remote place where we do interesting robotic experiments on an esoteric level that don't benefit anyone. It is a whole cornucopia of things. It's hundreds of experiments. It's insight into the universe. It's insight into the world, but it's also insight into ourselves. And social media is an invitation on board to see it for what it really is, not the manufactured or glossy product of what we want people to think what it is, but actually an invitation on board to see all of the raw material of capability that we've put up there. And that is contagious. it interests people beyond the people who are naturally drawn to scientific research, but it draws in people of all walks of life, and that's who are asking to pay for the space station.